The fight between Jake Paul and Nate Diaz is over, and fans weren't disappointed in the showdown. Fans and pros have been torn on who they thought would come out on top, and it seemed to have come down to the fact that Nate Diaz is new to boxing. Jake Paul planned to end Diaz's fighting career though. Jake stated, "Whatever he wants to do, Saturday is his last day of being a fighter. I'm knocking him the f*** out, putting him to sleep. He's a bully. He's not a professional like I am. That's why I'm doing it at the highest level. That's why he needs me to make these fights." Well, here's what people thought of the showdown. Leading up to the fight, everyone was putting their predictions in, and not too many people seemed to have faith in Nate Diaz as a boxer. Teddy Atlas had some faith in Nate's skills, but he definitely thought that Jake would take care of him. Teddy stated, "Diaz, he can strike, he's a tough guy, but again, he's not hard to hit. The old-timers would say in some of his fights he gets insulted if you miss him. He's got a chin of granite, he's got a heart of 5 lions, we know all that. But again, he's now, as crazy as this sound when he's the guy with a history of fighting, he's now in Jake Paul's theater. I have to go again with Jake Paul. Yeah, Diaz can catch him with one of those unorthodox shots the way he's caught other people in the cage. But Jake Paul has advanced enough, he's developed enough. He throws a pretty good jab, he throws his punches pretty straight, especially his right hand with power." Leon Edwards thought both fighters should be careful with jumping in the ring with each other.
I think Jake gotta be careful, like Nate is he's tough, he's durable, he's a great boxer, that's like his style, right? Very pressure forward fighter, so from when you seen Jake fight Tommy the last time, you can see a lot of holes in his game that he's still like a beginner, so if I had to pick, I probably favor Nate more. But yeah, I feel at this point as well, like we need like an MMA guy to win, right? He's knocked out Woodley, he's knocked out Askren. Yeah. So I feel like now I'm hoping that Nate can get it done. I feel like he will get it done as well.
Has Nate got a bit of pop in those punches?
He caught me lovely, didn't he? So I'll have to say yes. But yeah, I feel like Nate should have enough to beat him. I feel like his mentality is there. He's tough, he's durable, great cardio. So yeah.
Eddie Hearn respects Nate Diaz, but he thought that this was one of the biggest mismatches in recent boxing history. Eddie stated, "You know that it's going to be a mismatch against Jake Paul, don't you? I know you love Nate Diaz, and I love him. Listen, I've only met him a couple of times. What a gent. But for it to be a mismatch against Jake Paul, yes, he's getting smoked. Honestly, I'm that confident. And we're talking about Jake Paul. We're not talking about Tyson Fury or Anthony Joshua fighting an MMA fighter. We're talking about Jake Paul. It won't go 4 rounds. Listen, unless it's all a bit of a bluff by Nate, what I saw, maybe. Vidal Riley definitely had his money on Jake Paul winning it all, but he had a very specific way he thought that it would happen.
Jake Paul versus Nate Diaz, August the 5th in Dallas, Texas. Very good fight. I think that fight's been brewing for a long time. The men have had beef, their camps have had beef. If I'm gonna put in a prediction, I'm gonna say that Jake wins on cuts. I think the scar tissue that Nate Diaz has is a bit crazy, and Jake will land. Yeah, I think he's gonna shred him up. I think it's a TKO win for Jake via cuts.
Michael Bisping believed that Nate would have a better chance of winning the later that the fight went on. Bisping stated, "I think Jake Paul is going to come in. He's going to look very dangerous early. I think he's going to learn from the Tommy Fury fight. He's going to look better. It's only when you lose that you improve. The longer the fight goes, Nate Diaz starts to take control. He never gets tired. And I think Jake Paul gets defeated once again. Nate Diaz gets the job done via decision." Conor McGregor was hoping that Nate Diaz would win, and he wasn't going to be attending the fight. Conor stated, "I think Nate Diaz slaps his head off and I'm looking forward to seeing it. I'll probably be in the Lamborghini on the coast of Sicily. I think it's Nate." Tommy Fury couldn't stand the fact that Jake Paul is back to fighting retired MMA fighters.
Again, we go back to the start of his career, fighting old, retired MMA guys, you know, who can't box. I said he once, and again, you'll see that I'm right, come whenever the date is. You know, Nate Diaz is a great fighter, one of the best there ever was in MMA. Boxing's a different sport, and everyone will see that.
Dustin Poirier understood that one punch from a guy as big as Jake would be enough, but he also commented on Nate's unorthodox style. Dustin stated, "Nate has good boxing, but it is unorthodox. With boxing gloves, things are different, timing is different, and range is a little different. Jake is a big athletic young kid. If I had to put my money on it, I would put it on Jake. I've been around both guys. Jake is a lot bigger than me, and he's explosive. He hasn't been doing it that long, but all it takes is one punch from a guy like that." Carl Froch just couldn't see an MMA fighter holding his own against a boxer. Carl stated, "I'm unsure if I'll be watching. I'll probably watch the replay. That's no slant on him, but I can't watch that. I'm not really too interested in watching these crossover YouTube fights. I think that Jake Paul is more of an established boxer. I don't want to say that Jake Paul is a pro boxer because he's not. I don't think he ever will be, but he is closer than any of those crossover boxers are to becoming a pro boxer. I would expect Jake Paul to beat Nate Diaz in the boxing ring. On the street or in the cage, Jake Paul hasn't got a chance. Nate Diaz would absolutely slaughter him, but I still think that Diaz has got a bit of boxing ability. He can still move around and throw punches, so it's an interesting one, but I've got to make Jake Paul the favorite because I just think that a decent boxer beats up a top MMA fighter in a boxing ring." Max Holloway had to stick with Nate as a favorite.
Nate Diaz is boxing Jake Paul. Who have you got in that fight?
You gotta roll with the OG Nate. You gotta roll with the OG Nate, man. I got nothing but love for Nate. I think he does well, man. He's a boxer. He's a boxing-based guy in MMA. So now he gets to actually box and stuff, and his reach, and he can hit. He can crack, bro. His arms is long, and he can crack. So I heard a few behind-the-scenes stuff about Nate and why that fight took so long to come in. He's trying to get all his boys paid too. So Nate is that dude, bro. He's that guy.
Carl Frampton had originally thought that Nate's unorthodox style was going to be a problem for Jake Paul, but after seeing him hit some pads, he quickly changed his mind. Frampton stated, "He has an unorthodox style and is certainly very tough. It interests me a bit. 2 years ago, I wouldn't have watched the fight, but I will be watching this one. I was siding with Nate Diaz before I saw clips of him on the pads. I've changed my opinion, and now I think Jake Paul will win." Anderson Silva had faced Jake Paul after retiring from the UFC as well, and he thought that Nate would have the upper hand against someone like Jake Paul. Anderson stated, "Jake's training a lot. People need to respect everything he's doing because it's very professional and focused. It's very hard to say who wins because both are good fighters. Nate is more experienced. He has good boxing and good cardio. I respect both. Jake has a good coach. He's very smart. The fight is not about power, it's about timing, and both have good timing. Jake has now some good experience in boxing and is learning every day, but Nate is a beast. When you go to fight him, you need to prepare for war. I think he has more experience and is the favorite. When talking about what his upcoming plans were after the fight, Nate Diaz hinted at a possible return to the UFC, which had fans divided on whether or not he should go back in after fighting so hard to get out. Nate stated, "Yeah, probably. I'm not thinking past this. Right now, I said I'll get that done and then know what I'm gonna do. I have ideas. It's probably either back in the UFC or do something like this in an MMA style." As for Jake, his co-promoter Nikisa Bedarian thought that Jake might retire from boxing if he lost to Nate Diaz. He stated he may retire if he loses to Nate Diaz. His boxing career is on the line in terms of being one of the top 3 or 4 guys in the entire sport globally. I think if he was to lose, he'd just go to being another prospect that's coming up in the ring. I don't think his place in the sport is at stake. I just think it's about what's next for him and how much leverage does he have in dictating what's next versus having to accept what's next. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe and check out some of our other videos on the screen right now.